بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. اللهم إني أعوذ بك أن أضل أو أضل أو أزل أو أزل أو أظلم أو أظلم أو أجهل أو يجهل علي. Alhamdulillah. One thing that Imam Ghazali continues to focus on in this text, as we continue it from last time, inshallah ta'ala, is the importance of action. وروي أن الجنيد قدس الله سره. So he narrates, Imam Junayd is known as Imam al-Ta'ifatayn. And the reason for that is he's the Imam of the two groups, or the two kind of branches, if you will. And that is to do with the branch of those who focus more on spiritual matters and the people who focus more on the fiqh, legal, hadith type of matters. And Imam al-Junayd was known to have mastered both sides. And he used to say, one of his famous statements is من لم يقرأ القرآن أو من لم يحفظ القرآن ويقرأ الحديث فلا يتحدث في أمرنا هذا أو كما قال رضي الله عنه. He says, whoever does not memorize the Quran and does not study the hadith or the sunnah of the beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then they cannot speak in this affair of ours. The thing about spirituality is that it's very easy to confuse your whims for spiritual pursuits. And so you need to have proper guidance from the Quran and the Sunnah for you to do that. And what you notice about the true masters of this field, they were also masters of the Islamic tradition in its most kind of dry form. So they knew the Quran, they knew the Hadith, they knew the Sunnah, they knew all of the Arabic language rules and all of these things. They knew all of the technical aspects. They're masters at it. And the most shocking usually for people is when you find the likes of Habib Umar bin Hafid, Habib Kalim Sagaf, Sheikh Samir al-Nas. You don't really find them speaking a lot about technical things and usul and like these high lofty theoretical issues. They don't discuss these things. You find their message is usually very simple, and it's just to do with simple practical advice. Their spiritual kind of training is also very straightforward, very simple, very direct. So you walk away with the impression that these people don't really know anything. All they do is just sing qasaid. They just sit in Mawlid and that's it. I mean, Sheikh Sabir al-Nas, you go online and you just see majority of the stuff that gets most of the views online is just burda. And so you don't realize that this is a person who has ijazah in the 10 different qira'at of the Quran. This is a person who studied medicine as well as sharia. He's got ijazah from the previous mufti, not the current one, previous mufti of Syria. In Hanafi fiqh, he's a jurist. That he teaches tajweed and the 10 qira'at at the master's level in Ma'had al-Fath. That he did his residency in internal medicine in the States. So he's a board certified physician from the US. And he's got ijazat in various aspects of the Islamic tradition. You wouldn't know that about him. All you see is just singing burda, and so you think that's it, just spirituality. But what it is really is, all of this stuff is for them it's considered means to an end. That is not the thing to celebrate. We have a fetish in this age of talking a lot about theory, a lot about lofty things, but when it comes to practicalities, and this is something that I've continued to mention time and again, when it comes to practical things that are very simple, let's just learn our fiqh, you find that people are not interested in it that much. They don't really care to. Which has to do with something that you need to figure out how to conduct your life as a believer. So Imam al-Junayd, he says here, may Allah sanctify his secret, رؤيا في المنام بعد موته, that he was seen by one of his students after he passed away. He was seen in a dream. فقيل له, and it was said to him, ما الخبر يا أبا القاسم? Oh, Abu Qasim, what happened? You've died, you've passed on. What has Allah done with you? There's another narration of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu after he was martyred and he passed away. He was seen in a dream and he was called, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, O Commander of the Believers. What has Allah done with you? And he said, Amir al-Mu'mineen, what? This is done now. I saw all of my actions as a big massive throne, embellished and adorned, but it was on the verge of collapse. But there was one time when I was walking in the streets of Medina and I saw the children had tied up a bird and the bird was trying to escape and they were playing with the bird. Now, they're kids, they don't know, but the bird was clearly suffering. So Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu freed the bird. And he said, that bird came to my salvation, came to save me, and he held up my throne. A little simple, seemingly insignificant action that you wouldn't really pay much attention to. It's as little as you walking on the street, hawnan, you're walking gently on the street, and instead of raising your gaze up and looking around, you're instead paying attention on the ground so that you don't step on an ant. And when you get almost about to step on an ant, you avoid it on purpose and you say, Allah, please, I'm just doing this for your sake. I'm not killing this ant out of ghafla. I'm being aware of my surroundings. It's that little action that could actually come. That ant could come on the Day of Judgment and save you. So don't belittle any action that you do. And this is the importance of the message that Imam Ghazali is trying to instill. Spirituality in Islam is not like the Buddhist monks who just sit there and meditate, mindfulness, and you feel some elation. It is a practical action. And we don't do it to get a feeling. We do it because we want to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you get some sort of elated feeling out of it, that is from the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is a gift that Allah can give you at times, and at times you may not get it. But you still continue to do the work. Because the nature of the human being is that you go up and down. So Imam al-Junayd, he was seen in a dream, and he was asked, what is the affair? What is the matter, O Abu Qasim? And he said, طاحت تلك العبارات وفنيت تلك الإشارات وما نفعنا إلا ركيعات ركعناها في جوف الليل. He said, all of those lofty statements that I used to say about fana and baqa and feeling like oneness and all of that stuff, and feeling that you've been decimated and you've become nothing, and all of these things that he used to speak about, is like all that has just fallen by the wayside. And all of these indications that I used to make, they have also perished. And the only thing that has benefited us, he said rukayat. He didn't even say raka'at, like a lot of prayer. He said a few of them. In other words, he's indicating that not all of them were really as they should have been performed. So a few units of prayer that I used to do at night, that's what benefited me. In the middle of the night when people are asleep. And that's an interesting point to pay attention to. You could get up at night and you could pray, or you could recite Quran. But we were sitting in a class one time with Professor Sherman Jackson, Sheikh Hakim Jackson, and he was mentioning, he was commenting, he wrote the book Sufism for Non-Sufis, which is his translation and commentary on Ibn Ata'illah Sakandari's Taj al-Arus. Beautiful, beautiful text. And he was mentioning to us, he said, your nafs will want to recite Quran, and it will not want to pray 2 rak'ahs. And the reason for that is because when you recite Quran, your brain will remember some verses and will keep it in storage for the right time so that you can mention them when you're in a gathering if something comes up. So then people can say, MashaAllah. And so while you did something that was virtuous, some riyah could enter into it, even though it was something happening in the middle of the night that you thought was, this is the subtlety of these matters. But 2 rak'ahs, who are you going to show that off to? Unless you actually go and mention to people, listen, last night at 2:30 in the morning, mashallah, I got up and I prayed and I did. I mean, you wouldn't do that. So it's 2 rak'ahs. So he says, you will notice that 2 rak'ahs are actually heavier on your ego than reciting Quran. Because the Quran can have some share for the ego in it. By the way, if you can recite Quran, recite Quran. I'm not saying don't recite Quran. I'm just saying that when you're looking at the subtleties, and this is why you need a sheikh. The importance of a sheikh is that it's like medicine, right? They give you an individualized treatment. If you have a relationship with your teacher, they will see into you and they will say, look, do this. When they give you a prescription, that's for you. You need to do X, Y, and Z. And that's why the beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Sahaba would come to him and they would ask for advice, but you notice in the hadith that each Sahabi would get a different type of advice. So you hear a hadith where he says, La taghdab, and he repeats it, don't get angry, don't get angry. That's a general advice for us, but it's actually about that companion as well, because he had a temper problem. So for him, that was the most important thing that he needed to focus on. Some others, they're pretty easygoing. Takes a lot to get them riled up. But they might be miserly. So for them, it's actually spend. So that's how the advice can change. أيها الولد, dear beloved son, or أيها الولد, dear son, لا تكن من الأعمال مفلسا. Do not be bankrupt from actions. Don't let your whole life about Islam be statements and phrases and no actions. You haven't done anything. ولا من الأحوال خاليا, and empty from states. Each one of us should keep track of and just observe yourself. How are you feeling? And as you engage with the acts of worship and the consistency, it's really through the consistency that you get better at it. And it's through consistency that you find yourself improving and changing from station to station. If you're not, the trajectory that you should have is, it's ups and downs, but the overall line should be in a progression upwards, improvement. وتيقن أن العلم المجرد لا يأخذ اليد. In regards to states, before I go into this next one, the beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إذا قرأتم القرآن فابكوا فإن لم تبكوا فتباكوا. When you recite the Quran, then weep. And if you can't weep, if you're not weeping, then pretend to weep. In other words, try to initiate a state. Fake it till you make it. Try to really focus. When you're doing istighfar, try to visualize what's happening. When you're doing istighfar, you're cleaning the rust off of your heart. So actually, close your eyes for a second as you're doing astaghfirullah, and pretend like you're going with a sweeper around your heart. You're going with a wipe, and you're just wiping. Astaghfirullah, that's one wipe. Astaghfirullah, that's another wipe. And you're just cleaning it up. And the reason you're doing the sweeping and cleaning up is because لَمْ تَسَعْنِ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in a hadith Qudsi that the heavens and the earth has not encompassed me. وَلَكِنْ وَسِعَنِ قَلْبُ عَبْدِي الْمُؤْمِنِ. But the heart of my servant, the believing servant of mine, that will be able to take me. So in other words, if that's the house, that's where you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see, well, clean it up. So as you're doing astaghfirullah, visualize yourself actually cleaning it up. And what are you cleaning? Picture yourself, man, I got into some gossiping, I got into some backbiting, I got into some lying, I got into some idle talk, I got into this, and I'm just cleaning all of that up. The more you do that, what you'll find yourself is you'll enter into a situation, a state of wakefulness, as opposed to the state of heedlessness that we're always in. You go out from ghafla into yaqadha. And as you do that, you'll start to become more aware of yourself outside of that situation. So when you're in your daily interactions, you become more aware of, oh, I was about to say something. I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to go back. And then he says, and be certain, وَتَيَقَّنْ أَنَّ الْعِلْمَ الْمُجَرَّدَ لَا يَأْخُذُ الْيَدَ. That knowledge devoid from action is not going to take you by the hand. It has to be exercised. You have to do something about it. مثاله, and then he gives an example. لو كان على رجل في برية 10 أسياف هندية مع أسلحة أخرى. If a man had with him 10 Indian swords, because they were known for their quality and how sharp they were, and the type of metal they used and the type of craftsmanship that went into them. If you had 10 of those in the wilderness, وَكَانَ الرَّجُلُ شُجَاعًا وَأَهْلَ حَرْبٍ, And this man was very brave, and in fact was a soldier. He could fight. فحمل عليه أسد عظيم مهيب فما ظنك هل تدفع الأسلحة شره عنه بلا استعمالها وضربها. And then a big massive lion started to attack this man, came after this man. Do you think that the swords by themselves are going to fight this lion? Or does the man actually have to grab the swords and start to fight? فمن المعلوم أنها لا تدفع إلا بالتحريك والضرب. Because it is known that these swords have no action of themselves. They have to be moved and they have to be acted upon for them to act and to hit and to strike. That's how they exert their function. فكذا لو قرأ رجل 100,000 مسألة علمية وتعلمها ولم يعمل بها لا تفيده إلا بالعمل. The same is like a person who would read 100,000 problems or issues in knowledge, in the tradition, and learns them, but doesn't act upon them. These things will not actually benefit you except through action. So I'm going to hear the story of Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu taking 10 years to memorize Surah Al-Baqarah and then slaughtering a great calf at the end of it in celebration. That's not because he had a problem with memory. People back then, that was an oral culture. They could memorize very quickly. And he said, أبطأني العمل. It is action that has actually slowed me down. You have stories of companions and tabi'een and great awliya that would go and they would knock on doors knowing that a person is going to turn them away at the time. And the reason for that is because they wanted to say, I applied that verse in the Quran that says when you knock on a door and you're told, فَرْجِعُوا فَرْجِعُوا. إِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمْ ارْجِعُوا فَرْجِعُوا. Then said, get back, then you get back. So this is how much this is the extent that, this is the kind of subtle detail that they would go to. I mean, what else did they apply in their lives for them to go to that extreme level? And it's not really extreme. They're just recognizing that I'm acting upon everything that's come in the Quran. ومثله أيضا لو كان لرجل حرارة ومرض صفراوي يكون علاجه بسكنجبين والكشكاب فلا يحصل البرء إلا باستعمالها. So he gives another example of someone who has a fever and has a disease of the liver. This person needs medication and they cannot get well except by actually taking this medication. ولو قرأت العلم 100 سنة وجمعت 1000 كتاب, and if you read knowledge for 100 years and you collected 1000 books, لا تكون مستعدا لرحمة الله إلا بالعمل. You will not be ready for the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except through action. وأن ليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى. And there is nothing for the human being, there's in Surah Al-Najm, except that which they actually seek after. And sa'i is not just simply like slowly kind of lazily tarrying about and doing it. Sa'i is like hastening towards it, like making sure that you do it. فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا. In Surah Al-Kahf, and there's a reason why you recite Surah Al-Kahf once a week. Whoever seeks meeting their Lord, then do righteous actions. جَزَاءً بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Surah At-Tawbah, there is a reward for what they've been actually earning. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا خالدين فيها لا يبغون عنها حولا. So again, Surah Al-Kahf, those who believe and do righteous actions. And you'll notice in the Quran, belief is always connected to righteous action for you to get the reward. It is not إن الذين آمنوا دخلوا الجنة. It's إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. There's always, you have to do something about this iman. And when you do something, it actually confirms your iman. It starts to solidify it for you. Anytime I get somebody that comes to me and asks me questions about, I'm having some doubts, I'm having this, my immediate question is, can you tell me what's going on with your prayer? What is your situation with your 5 daily prayers? And every single time, without an exception, I have yet to meet a single person who actually does their prayers properly. I'm talking about here with presence. Who has come to me and said, I have doubts. Every time somebody has come with doubts, they're not observing their prayers properly. They haven't studied their fiqh, they're missing prayers left, right, and center, or they're delaying them, or they're thinking I'm just going to make them up all at the end of the day because I got work and I got school. There's something off with their prayer. And so they're effectively disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then it's no wonder that they're coming to me later on and saying, I'm having doubts. Well, this religion is not just about, if you go to Imam Ghazali's Deliverance from Error, he also says, I read all the books of the Sufis. I read the books of the philosophers, the books of the mathematicians, the books of the esoterics, the books of the Ismailiyya, all of them. I've read all of their books, refuted all of them. But when it came to the Sufis, it's like, this is the only people that I cannot experience the truth of what they said except through doing it. And when he did it, when he tried to talk about it later, he wouldn't even talk about it. He said, you gotta do it. I can describe for you what chocolate tastes like. But you're not going to know what chocolate tastes like until you actually taste chocolate. So you actually have to do this. And you gotta do it with the guidance of a teacher. Because if you do it on your own, it will overwhelm you. You might actually backfire. إِلَّا مَنْ تَابَ وَآمَنَ وَعَمِلَ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا. And then he finishes off that with another verse from Surah Al-Furqan, that only those who repent, believe, and then do righteous action. So again, we just go back. If you notice the theme in Ayyuhal Walad so far, he starts it off and we're about a page and a half into it now. It's all about, do not be deluded into thinking that knowing things about this religion without actually acting upon it is going to save you. You have to act it out. And only when you act it out, you'll find that وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will actually give you knowledge that you did not have. I know people that were able to memorize the Quran without having known how to read and write. I've actually heard it with my own ears. It's just because they lived a righteous life. They were just very simple. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted them knowledge that was without an intermediary. They didn't have a teacher. I went away and I come back and all of a sudden these people are reciting long surahs. Where'd you learn this from? Subhanallah. But that's because they were just focused on little actions. This is not a grandiose showmanship kind of a thing. Little actions. Focus on little things in your life. How can you improve your situation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And you will notice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will facilitate things for you in a way that you hadn't experienced before. We'll stop it here inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.